As you make your way through your various wargaming systems, what we start to see are kind of universal tactics, tactics that apply to a variety of different games. And from this high-level matrix, it's to assemble this, like your wargaming toolkit, to look at the system that you play, the opportunity that you play under that rule set and the armies, and kind of map out these ideas and use them on the tabletop. So within that framework, I'm going to be pushing this up to the Wargaming Tactics playlist. Let's talk about the distraction effects. Let's talk about a distraction unit. A number of years ago, when I was playing Tyranids, Space Bugs, for Warhammer 40,000, the Carnifex was this massive, massive assault beast that just had a lot of wounds, a lot of armor, was really, really tough, could do some damage if it got up there. It had configurations, biomorphs for both shooting and close combat attacks. Obviously, with its strength and toughness, it was better suited for close combat, but it could put out some interesting firepower combinations. Like most really powerful units in a wargaming system, to offset that, it was expensive in terms of points. And in 40K at the time, you'd pay various points for your units, and then it had a base cost. And as you added upgrades and biomorphs, it got more and more expensive. So you paid for what you received. And one of the tactics utilized by this piece was called the distraction effects, where you would just take one and you would send that living tank artillery battle bug just straight up the center. And you knew it was going to take some damage. You knew it was going to attract attention from your opponent. That had to happen, right? But one of the things by sending it up the center of the table, and it might not be the exact center, of course, you're going to utilize terrain and maybe move a little to the left and maybe jump from here to there. Yes, but by sending it directly up the center, what you did was ideally, one, force your opponent to kind of stay in place, right? Brace and just shoot the heck out of this space bug. They weren't going to advance because they're getting closer to the Carnifex. They would stand there or maybe back up just in range, at long range with their weapons and shoot. And it would encourage them to take multiple units and do that to try and bring this bug down. So turn one, you're running up the table, or as soon as possible, running up the table, and they're going to pause. A number of units within that threat area are going to pause, move back a little bit, get a good firing position, and then maybe turn two, turn three, when they're in range, fire. So ideally by turn three, you were dead. Maybe you're still alive. Now, of course, we don't want to trade models and miniatures for miniatures, or battle value, squadron points, power points, support points, whatever that's going to be. But sometimes you will take a unit, and the idea is to distract your opponent, to get them focusing for a turn or two on that unit. And it has to just be super killy enough. It just has to be powerful enough that it forces them. It forces them to deal with it. Even if they're like, Fritz, I know what you're doing. You're running the thing right up the center of the table. Yes, but you have to deal with it. You can't ignore it. And I'm trading that unit and what that unit represents for some maneuverability of my other units on the tabletop. I'm trading it for shots, meaning those are not optimized shots going at other units that I might have. And if my opponent is not really aware for a variety of reasons, maybe they overly focus on it and they're not focusing on the mission. They're not focusing on deployment. They're not focusing on other areas, which just for a turn or two, that might be worth a trade. Where you get into trouble and what you have to be careful of course, is where you get overly into this, where you're like, wow, this is awesome. I'm going to jack up this distraction unit and give it all these abilities and make it super powerful. It has to be resilient and threatening just enough, but at the lowest possible buy-in, because past turn 3, past turn 4, past turn 2, it is going to get destroyed. It's trading that value for opportunity or potential opportunity on the table. Now, looking at your wargaming system, and again, this is like system separation, looking at your system, looking at the army you play, looking at what you're trying to do. What option do you have?